I'm your host, coach and psychologist Julian, and my guests are remarkable, ambitious humans who share their stories of doubtful moments, of their insecurities, and how that shaped their successes today. Welcome, everybody. Today I'm joined by Alex. How are you doing today, Alex?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
And for everybody to understand who this character Alex is, I want to know what significant life events do people need to know about you in order to get a better understanding and grasp of the man who you are today.
Okay, so that's a great question. And I've heard this before. It just doesn't. So let me start out by saying the past seems to shape us, and in the end, it feels to me nowadays that it only shapes who we think we are, not who we actually are, right? So, like, the one who was there when I was 5, who witnessed the ice cream eating and the playing with Legos when I was 5, is still the same I who I am now. And yet the question has its merit, right? Because usually we want to know a little bit more about the person, the character, what he's been through, and so on. It's just that I really I'm still having a adventurous life, doing a lot of stuff. So I really don't know how to answer that. Maybe do you usually get some autobiographic short summary or?
Yeah, usually it's that people answer that, there were a couple of significant events that shaped the way I think, that had a tremendous effect on maybe the path in life that you took. And so some of those events I think are sometimes very interesting to see because you know then, okay, for example, I know about you that you were actually studying and working in something completely different that you're doing now.
Yeah.
And then that raises to me the question, wait, where did that shift come from? And I think then those are the things that I could answer in that question.
Thanks. Yeah, so I guess I was always just searching for what to do, and how to be happy in life. And when I grew up in Belarus, or Soviet Russia, and immigrated with 9 to Germany, and then grew up the rest in Western Germany. So everyone was always telling me what to do to be happy. And it's basically to have a good career, good friends, have a nice relationship, kids at some point, plant a tree, have a house, maybe be successful or have status, drive a big German car, or maybe be famous even, maybe be famous, a little bit of fame. So I guess to answer this question, the most significant disappointment, at least in my life, was when I kinda had it all, when I kinda just finished my PhD in mechanical engineering or computational materials science, and I had found my now wife and best friend and, I don't know, soulmate, whatever. And I kind of had it all, like I had a secure job, I had a few publications to my name, I could have more of that, but I was really unhappy, and this really kind of was very impactful because I couldn't understand it, everything was fine. I was having good food, good friends, everything was fine. But this was also a very good thing that happened. It's maybe what many people go through when they are doing this midlife crisis thing. It just happened a little earlier with me. I was like 27.
Okay. And how did that impact you? So how did you realize, first of all, that you were unhappy? And Because I think that's an important question. How did you know that this was not the right path? And what shifted then?
It was really easy. It was really easy to realize that I was unhappy because I finished my PhD and I was laying in bed and not wanting to get up, not seeing much sense in doing anything because I was kind of done with my bucket list, you know. Yeah, of course, I could have sex on a jet ski or do more paragliding at that time. I did later. But but most of my bucket list was done, right? And I was still like, but there is no happiness, you know? I thought that there would be this arrival moment, you know? That there, in German, I hear it all the time. It's called ankommen, arrival, to arrive. And people are like seeking to finally arrive, to stop being tired, to stop chasing it, you know, in the future, you know? And myself included. So I was chasing it a lot. And I was apparently one of the lucky ones who actually made it and not died trying or not, you know. And still I was laying at home, kind of unhappy, not really wanting to do anything. So it was really easy to notice. And it was also really to notice that this path wouldn't get me anywhere because, again, I kind of had the luck to just, like Jim Carrey, he became very famous and then depressed, right? So I wasn't that famous, but I kind of was lucky enough to have tasted it and realized like, oh, this won't make me happy. This can make me happy for 10 seconds when something is reached. And then I'm like, nice, a new paper in Nature or whatever. And then what, you know? And then, but because then the mind will be like, and now what? Now what? And it won't stop. So yeah, that was really easy. I'm very grateful that it was so easy for me to see because I was kind of depressed or burned out or bored out or something like this.
Yeah. So that's interesting. And then you actually, realize you have gotten your PhD at that point. You figured, okay, I have the life that I really want. And I'm depressed. And then what did you decide to do in that moment?
Well, what was figured out is I had the life that I thought I wanted or I wanted, right? So because all I wanted or all you want, the listener, I guess, all you want is just what you think you want, right? It's just what the thinking tells you. Oh, I really want some ice cream, right? Could you live without it? Yeah, sure. Could it be that you get an ice cream and then you realize you don't want it? Yeah, sure. I did this many times, you know? I went to the fridge, picked up ice cream, and then tasted it, and then I realized that the third one didn't taste as good. And then I didn't eat the whole thing, right? So it happens all the time that we think we want something because we think it will make us happy, but it doesn't. It's just very common among people, among at least all people I talk with. And so, yeah, that didn't work. And I was a little disillusioned, you could say, because I was like, well, then what, right? If I couldn't follow what I think I want, if all I reach is just going to be a 10-second climax, you could say, right? Like a 20 or maybe one day, I finally have my dream job. Today, I actually signed papers for a 2-day dream job of mine, right? Like I just signed the papers. And again, it was like I danced a little bit alone in my flat for 5 minutes. And then I made some water. And now it's again just normal. It's gone so fast, right? Now I'm like, yeah, I'm working there. I like work. It's gonna be awesome. And it's not fulfilling. It's not gonna nurture me. I'm not gonna arrive today and like, oh, now I arrived. I have my dream job. It's just it's not.
That's interesting. So you said we only want the thing that we think we want, or that's I guess what we strive for. In my mind, I was like, okay, but that's the best attempt that I have, knowing what I want. Stuff that's coming up in my mind.
Absolutely. And especially because you think things from the outside made you happy before, because it appears that way for 10 seconds, right? It's actually works,
Yeah.
but it's just not sustainable. There is no arrival. There is no, and now we did it. And now we landed on the moon, Like, I think half of the people who landed on the moon became depressed at some point. I'm not sure of the statistics, but yeah, it's just not true, Like, when I think back, what I thought as a kid that would make me happy, like ice cream or, I don't know, playing video game, pornography, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these things, they kind of worked, but they only kind of worked. They only worked for a very specific time, like, as I said, maybe 10 seconds to one day.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be chasing the dragon or running behind something that is not gonna fulfill you. It's like pouring new water in a bucket with a hole inside. So I guess what you were asking was, and then what, right? Like, if this is my best guess and this didn't work out, at least for me it didn't, what then? And I guess the question is great. It's just that it's better to first ask, why do we chase it? Why do we chase, I don't know, the drug, the Instagram, the 10 more followers, the success, the money, the sexual or relationship partner, whatever, the health, right? The six pack. Why do we chase it? And it's, to my understanding, it's because we think it will make us happy.
Mm-hmm.
We think it will make us happy. This is what we call wanting, right? And then we think that what is now is not enough, by the way.
Yeah.
which is it goes hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. If you think something will make you happy in the future, then right now must be something insufficient. At least that one thing that you're chasing. If I'm chasing a new VR headset and think it will make me happy, then right now I'm gonna be unhappy at least a little bit, or I wouldn't chase it, or I wouldn't want it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, well, I'm all right now, but when I'm gonna get that VR headset, then I'm gonna be really happy. True story. And I guess the question you had was exactly the question I had when I realized that. I was like, whoa, but then what? What do I do then, right? If this is not a good idea. And right now, I can only talk from my side what I'm doing now. Right now, it doesn't make sense to run behind things to make me happy, but I'm still buying VR headsets. I still eat ice cream sometimes, Like, I'm still doing the fun stuff in life. I just don't think it will make me happy. Whenever I feel somewhat unhappy or not at peace, I know where to go, you could say, like it's not going to be in the future, and it's not going to be outside. And that's just good to know. Yeah.
And so what you said is, there is nothing in the future that will eventually make you happy, that you finally arrive. And yet, it's at least like in general, as humans, we have this urge to improve, to progress, to do something. Because if every day would now be the same as it is now, I think most people would have a difficulty with it. If every single day would be the same as today, if we would just do the same to just stay alive, I think that would not be really fulfilling either. I have this, at least personally, I have this urge, hey, I want to contribute something, I want to talk to other people, I want to learn something. Not that I think I will be happy then, but it's just like a natural urge, or like a want. I like, that would be fun. So what's the difference between this idea of, I think this will make me happy, and this is something that is fun and I want to do it? That feels like it's two separate things.
Well, it's just it really depends on your state of mind, I guess, because if you're in perfect peace and love and joy, and then do whatever you want, it will be perfect. Everything will work out for you. Like, you will not make the right crosses and win the lottery just because you're in love. It's not what I mean with everything is going to work out for you. But whatever happens is going to be for the best generally. Like, at least this is my experience. And so when you say, oh, but I just love creating new things, for example, creating a podcast or doing art or going on a long walk at the beach or something. Sure, just do it, right? Like, why would I? Or eating good food, whatever. So it's not the question of what you do, but what state of mind you have. Because I could eat that steak or that good food with thinking, oh, I'm a little tired and I'm a little stressed, but this is my favorite food and it will make me feel good and I deserve this and this is my treat for today and whatever, and then eat that steak, and then it actually will work because the mind is very capable of doing that. It will actually work and you will sit there for 20 minutes after having eaten the last bite of the steak, and you will have your towel and you will be like, this was so good. But this, what you have just created is this bind to this steak, because if it means that you can be at peace with the steak, and if you think the steak did it, how will you feel tomorrow without the steak? How will you feel tomorrow if there is just normal food? Just whatever you eat, right? Like I so and whatever it is, like some people have it with sex, or some people have it with jogging, or with green smoothies, and some people call it addiction. And I think we're all addicted. 100% of the humans, myself included, we're all addicted to thinking the future will be better, whatever that is, this future. And I think the better. So if we just realize that. If we just realize that we are thinking, that there is thinking going on all the time, I always forget that many people, or most people, again, myself included, forget this, that we're not constantly aware that there is thinking going on. And then that we take it for face value. And then we're like, yeah, this is what I want. I want a steak. And I deserve a steak, right? Like, and then there is opinions, and we could even go fighting over our opinions and have wars. And in the end, it's just because we don't realize that there's thinking going on all the time. There's thinking. So I don't know if I answered your question. Sorry.
I've got the question too, but I have more. No, but I think that's such a important thing to understand, that there is thinking going on. So what's the difference between thinking or thought and me, who I am? He's thinking, folks.
Well, technically, there is no one here thinking, right? Like, if I'm not gonna go full Buddha on you. It's just very important to say this at least once. There is just thinking happening, right? There's all the time. There is something thought. Something is thought here. At least I am witnessing the thinking. And this is a great question. So what is the difference between me, or I, who I am, and my thinking? And it's kind of straightforward to say, well, you are the one who is witnessing everything that is thought. And I'm not saying everything that you are thinking, because most people, at least everyone who I talk to, didn't choose what they're going to think. I don't know what I'm going to think in 10 minutes, right? Like, I don't know which kind of thinking will happen over here. It's just going to come up. And the best thing is, it's going to have its own set of special effects. If I'm going to be anxious, I'm going to have anxious special effects, feelings, If I'm going to be shy, I'm going to have shy feelings. If I'm going to have like I don't know, positive thinking of love and respect for my friends or something, it's gonna come with these beautiful emotions. And this is, again, this is one of the most important things to realize in your life, that this is happening basically 24/7. This is not yes, you're doing it. Who else, right? You are thinking. Who else? But you didn't decide what you're gonna think in 5 minutes. You didn't stand up in the morning and say, okay, I'm gonna first thinking about that. Then I'm gonna fuck myself up over taxes that I didn't do yet, and then I'm gonna think, oh, maybe I'm not good enough for my wife or something. And then I'm gonna realize it's all bullshit because I just made it up and she loves me and we're together for almost a decade. And then I'm gonna go to sleep. No one does this, right? It's just what happens to us, basically. It's just what's happening here, I could say. And being okay with that and not taking it too seriously, right? Not holding it too tightly, what is thought. And understanding that this is just what happens. It's just thinking happens to me, basically, or it happens over here. So, and this is, I guess, also the best description I have for what's the difference. Thinking is what happens, it's just a process. But I'm not a process, basically. I am being, basically. And everything happens within this awareness, within this presence of who I am and who you are, who everyone is.
All right. Your video just froze for me.
Oh, for a long time already?
For a minute or so. Didn't want to interrupt your flow, though.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I am still seeing my video.
Okay, that's awesome. I guess then it's fine.
It's gonna record, I guess.
I'll just switch yours off just for a second. So maybe then start it again. Can you start your video again? Let's see. There he is. At least now I can see you again. It's not frozen like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. No, I think that was one of the biggest insights for me too, when I was in a monastery for the first time for a 10-day meditation retreat. And I was the first 4 or 5 days, I was going nuts because there were so many thoughts. It didn't stop. There was no stopping. And I was only with myself. I didn't talk to anyone else. And I was like, my God, what the hell is going on in here? And the thing was, that's happening all the time, just that we are distracted sometimes so we don't realize it. Right? So most of the days, I don't know, I'm on my phone, I'm talking to somebody else, I'm working on work stuff, and then I don't realize that actually this is just thinking going on and I'm just constructing whatever is in front of me. And that realization was so magnificent that I was afterwards, wait, that is a thought. So how do I know that this is true about anything that I'm thinking? Which is very pulling the rug underneath myself, because if you question everything you think, you have to question the reality of who you are. And that's very scary.
It is. Yeah, it is very scary.
And so I think especially that with the thoughts, I think Dr. Joe Dispenza has also a great thing that we have this addiction to our thoughts and to the state that we are in, and sometimes living in the past because we're in the same emotional and energetic state as maybe a trauma event that happened to us. And when I now think about that everything is constructed, everything is in my mind, everything is not real, essentially, it's just something made up, maybe something I learned along the way, then I start questioning a lot. I might doubt a lot of okay, what's actually real? What's not real? And I know you also described in your description that you had a very significant event too, that you realized, oh wait, there's something happening. Can I trust this, or am I thinking the right thing? Am I is it true, whatever I'm thinking? And so, at least for me, that initial moment, that created a lot of doubt about the reality of the world, essentially.
So what was your initial moment like?
My initial moment was actually at first a little relief, because in that moment I was sitting there for days already and thinking that I needed to think those things through and get to a solution of, I don't know, my ex-girlfriend, my family, what I want to do in life, and all of that stuff suddenly evaporated because it was just not important right now, at that very moment at least. But then later, like in those breaks, let's say, of the meditation, or like 3-hour blocks of meditation, I was like, okay, but if that's not who I am, who am I?
Wow.
And then I was going deeper. I was like, okay, wait, the body, not really. I can like cut off an arm and I'm still like 100% me, I feel. Maybe if I'm not alive, then I feel it might be different, but I don't know yet. So intellectually, there might be a thing that I think I'm connected to the stuff that I know. But, that's changing all the time, every single second. So that was a little, inconclusive too. And so everything just pointed to, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know who I am.
Wow.
And so then it became a little bit doubt again. Okay, what do I do next? But most of the time, the thing that helps me out of that is just come into that moment again and feel like, hey, I'm just here right now.
Yeah, wow. So I did not have much of a, you could say, searching period. I didn't do any Vipassana retreats or stuff, Like I did a few retreats where I would meditate every day for a week, which were good. But I didn't have, at least it seemed to me that there was not enough concentration to go deep enough, to penetrate deep enough. Like I have been diagnosed 3 times with ADHD and stuff, so it wasn't a path I was actually actively trying to pursue, to go no, I'm just gonna go within and sit for 12 hours in silence for 2 weeks or something, Like this just wasn't my path. But I think you saw something very significant there, and I can highly recommend it to everyone, this kind of path, who thinks it's for them. You will know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, but I can share, I guess, what was very helpful to me, and it was multiple things. It started all with personal development literature, as most people have experience with that, right? Like basically 10 euro audiobooks on Audible, or books that you can buy. And there, smart people will tell you how to live, about how to live. And this is how it started for me. And it was helpful, right? I did it between the age of 17 or 18 and 27 or something, 26, for a long time. And it helped me a lot. But the trajectory went much, much steeper as soon as I started working in person with people, or going to in-person events, to actual like seminars or retreats, or working with a coach one-on-one, or going to a therapist one-on-one. This helped me tremendously. In particular, my first coach was very instrumental for me, and also the guy with whom I learned NLP. He was one of my first teachers. And and then because there, my materialist, objectivist basics were kind of a little shattered. Before I was thinking everything consists out of atoms and there's nothing else, and there is the objective world out there, and it's just whether I see it or not. And this is basically what all science seems to think, at least from the outside. which is not true nowadays, because in quantum, we have this Nobel Prize 2022, which basically disproved local realism. I won't go into details, but it basically answers the age-old question: what happens when a tree in a forest falls over? Does it make a sound if no one's there to hear it, right? Does it make a sound then? And for the most time in human history and in science, just because it seemed that way, people were answering, yes, of course, like sound is waves of air and stuff, and it will still happen whether you're there or not, whether anyone is there or not, will still happen. But for the most time in history, we also thought the world is flat, right? And we also thought that the sun rotates around us somehow. And now, 2022, we have proof that the actual answer, at least the now most real answer to this question, whether the tree makes a sound or not, is what tree? Because if no one's there to see it, if there is no one witnessing that tree, from what we understand now about consciousness and about existence, currently, and this was a groundbreaking thing, it's just nobody talks about it because I think nobody understands, but it was to me it was a groundbreaking thing in science, 2022, the same as Einstein or Newton 100 years or a few hundred years ago. And it's gonna blow up. And it's not gonna blow up, but people are gonna recognize the importance of that Nobel Prize in Physics, 2022, over the time. Maybe in 100 years they will be talking about it like about Einstein, about how they talk about Einstein now. So yeah.
But what tree now?
Yeah, exactly. There is no tree unless you see a tree.
Okay, that's the thing.
And that's exactly. So the thing is not objectivism but subjectivism. The thing is not. We were thinking that it's like brains that create consciousness and it's brains that create thinking. And more we have to at least consider and do more research on this to take it very lightly, that brains might not be thinking. That instead you are thinking brains. So brains don't think, you think brains, right? And for this, some of the teachers make an analogy as with a dream. They say, imagine you go to sleep now or tonight, and you find yourself on the streets of London or Paris or whatever, right? And then you find the body there. There appears to be a body. If you look down, you see a chest and you see feet and legs and stuff, as you would now. And you even have special effects that go along with it, like feelings and smells and touching, all of this stuff, right? Like perceptions, you could call them. You even see something, and you think this body is seeing because it appears that way, right? Like you don't see your own head, but you think you have one because everyone else tells you have one, and because in the mirror you see a head, right? And this is how you operate exactly in that dream world. Okay, and now there is someone in that dream who comes to you with a knife and is very threatening, and is gonna say to you, "I'm gonna kill you" or something. So you start running away from him. And you feel the fear, you feel the hate, you feel everything. You feel it's terrifying. It's a nightmare, you could say, right? So are these feelings real or not? Should be asked at this point. If you're listening to this, you could ask yourself, if I'm dreaming, are my feelings real or not? I have never asked this question before, and it's not a rhetorical question.
Okay.
This is what came to me right now.
Yeah.
Because, to me, how more real could it get? What could it make more real than when I'm dreaming and actually running away in a dream, of course, but it feels 100% like I'm there. I am fully bought into that story. I'm not thinking, oh, I'm just dreaming this. He could just cut my face. I don't care, right? You're not doing that. Most of the time you're running away. And what my spiritual teachers and what I'm offering, I guess, is becoming lucid in this life and understanding where suffering meets meets the ground, basically. Where does it come from that you suffer, right? And it's not because the dream is bad. It's because how you interact with that dream. As long as you fear the dream, as long as you're constantly running away and saying no to parts of the dream, saying, no, I don't want this. No, I don't want that. Yes, I want my steak. Yes, I want my whatever, my green shake. Then you have a very strong positionality, and you're on very loose ground, because your wants are shifting. Today you want ice cream, later you don't want ice cream. The world is shifting. Today you have ice cream, later there is none anymore. It's gone, right? So, and it's constantly as if you're in a quicksand. You never know where to step, where it's gonna be solid. But if you know you're dreaming, to stay with this example, if you know you're dreaming, then you can just lay back and be like, oh, okay, apparently we're running away, right? But there is no fear, there is no hate. You know that body in the dream that is representing you, so the first person body, as well as the other body who might have a very different skin color and is much bigger and having this big knife and wants to cut you, they're kind of the same. They are made out of the same thing. And you did it. You're the dream. You did both of them. And there is no degree of separation. And also the space in between them is just an illusion. Where should this space be? You're fucking dreaming, right? Like, of course it's all an illusion. And all these laws that seem very natural to us in dreams, and this way I bring up this metaphor, all these laws and all these things seem to apply in our everyday reality. This is, I guess, what was, again, one of my very groundbreaking moments over the last few years as well, this finding.
Okay. If that analogy, what you just stated, were to be true, but I have a lot of debt, my girlfriend just left me, I don't know where to go in my career, I don't really have friends around me, life just sucks right now, and it feels very, very real right now. The emotions are there, and I feel very bad. And you tell me, oh, this is just a dream, you can let go of it. Well, for people who are maybe in that situation.
So what I'm not saying is to do something specifically, right? I'm not saying to commit suicide, and I'm not saying to not commit suicide. I'm not talking about behavior at all, right? I'm just talking about your state of mind, how you treat what you see, not what you see, and not what you think you do, what you think this body is supposed to do or is gonna go do next, but how you relate to what's happening. Because if you relate to what's happening as if you are this little body, which is gonna die, at least 100% of people who went above a certain age, I don't know, 150 years or something, like most bodies died until now, and I suspect most bodies will die, maybe all of them, right? At least I fully expect this body to die. And I could be very afraid of it. Or, as all of the humans do, just not think about it. Just not think about it that this body will die. But be afraid all the time that this body will die. And this is the double bind we bring ourselves into. Most of the times, we live lives as if we are not gonna die, but in the back of our minds, kind of fearing that we are gonna die. And living out of that fear. Or am I gonna drive this bicycle? I always wanted to drive this motorbike. I always wanted to drive a motorbike. No, it's so dangerous, and this body is gonna die, right? Am I gonna go over there and approach that woman because I really like her and I would like to talk to her? No, she's gonna say no, and then the tribe will say go away, and then you are not gonna have food and you will die, is what I hear here, you know? And this is what then I feel. And I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna go over, not gonna say hi. And it's all based on the fear of death. In the end, every fear, every little fear, even losing gold on your a World of Warcraft account, is linked to the fear of this body dying and your identity with this body. And now let's shift the perspective. Imagine this were a dream and you knew this were a dream. What would you do? And this is the question, I guess, reformulated, that excellent question that you just asked. Then what to do? Well, what if this was a dream and you knew this was a dream? What would you do? This is a good question to where to come from.
So essentially, just understanding that the fear of death is creating a lot of suffering, just based on the fear of death. Hey, we don't want to die. That's why I have to think that if I don't have money, that's really bad, and I have to feel bad. If I approach that woman, she doesn't like me and rejects me, then I'm gonna die. And all of that is connected then to, okay, the fear of somehow keeping this body alive. Or the fear of dying, not keeping this body alive, but the fear of dying.
Yeah. And also what is unspoken, but what also comes with it is even the assuming the responsibility is that you have to do it. You know, I have to do something to keep this thing alive, for example, is a thought that some people have. And I don't know if animals have this, you know? I really don't know. I got some cats. I don't know if they're sitting there and thinking, I gotta do something to keep this body alive all the time. I know humans do, at least a lot, right? Especially if there is something to worry about, like bills or something. But I don't know if any animal ever had this thought. Yes, they will go out of their way to get food for their children, of course, sure. But maybe, just maybe, this is also possible without the thinking. Maybe it's just a thing that happens. And then thought comes in after the fact and says, I did it. I created here food. I'm so good. Alex, you're amazing. And then I can feel good about myself, this false self, this false sense of identity, this me, you could say, and be like, yeah, he's so cool. And most people think it's a good thing to have a good and strong sense of identity. The point is just that what happens if it starts breaking, you know? I was this strong and awesome guy who just made food for his kids, and I felt great about it for 20 seconds. Oh yeah, I'm so cool. I made food for my kids. But what happens tomorrow if I'm sick and I can't do it? Now I have, on top of the sickness, I have a reason to be in shame and to be like, oh no, I'm such a loser. I couldn't even provide food for my kids. But this thinking will not be helpful. It will not provide food for your kids. So why do it? And this is, I guess, the main message here.
Yeah, that was a question that I had now too. When you're sort of responsible for other human beings, for example, children. And at least the thought of just, let's say, not caring about their life sounds terrible.
Yeah, well,
so then
yeah,
because of what I see also a pattern that a lot of people have is, no, I need to do that because this person depends on me, because they expect this from me, because I have made a commitment to another person that I will do it. And so all of these things sound very real, though.
Yeah, and all of them suck. I mean, no one ever said what you just say, one of these 5 things, and then was like, oh, I really like doing it. So first, let me repeat what I heard. Something like, oh, well, I have to care for my kids because I made them and they depend on me and I have to get food for them, right? And I really like doing it more than anything else. I must do it, but I really like doing it. I never heard this before. Most people resent the things they must do. They feel obliged to do. They feel victim of having to do it. It's my responsibility. Well, I can't choose it anymore. I'm now trapped in this thing. I got a kid when I was 20 something, and now I have to deal with it, I guess. Well, I'm a little bit of a victim about it, right? Me too, right? Like, it's just good to know that this thinking makes a lot of suffering. This assuming responsibility doesn't actually feed the kids. Feeding the kids feeds the kids. Right? Like actually putting food on the plate, this feeds the kids. This whole thinking and feeling yourself responsible because you think you are this mighty guy who is a little godlike because you can create food out of nothing and bring it to the plate of your children, it will lead to a lot of pain over the time. It will work sometimes and create a rush of, yes, it was awesome for 10 seconds, and it will create some pain later down the road when they say, what? I don't want to eat this. For example, it's what they do very often. They say, I want a sandwich with cheese. And you make them a sandwich with cheese. And then they say, what? Are you stupid? I don't want to eat that stupid sandwich with cheese. And then they throw it on the floor and run out and they are crying. Okay. And if you if you then take this personally, which is very easy to do because it's your kid, you're like, oh, what? I did my best. How can it be? Or be the victim, of course, and get angry. How can you? I did the sandwich and I murdered her and I go work 20 days a week to bring this sandwich to you. And now you just put it on the ground. How disrespectful of you. Look at this. How disrespectful of you. How can you do this to me? Right? What does it mean about me is what the ego is constantly asking. And then you will just fight with your kids. Again, it's not the responsibility part, the thinking you're responsible and thinking you must do something that brings the food on the table. It's the putting the food on the table that brings the food on the table. And if you know the difference, I think you have something. You have something worth sharing.
I heard a lot that there is this thinking and that creates sort of your suffering. At least that's how I understand it, the way you were describing it. And when I think about it now, it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, sort of makes sense, I get, to an extent at least. Probably not to the extent that you describe it, but I get my fair share of it. And now what? What can I actually do or think or change in order to, get to that understanding, to get to that maybe different in behavior or feeling? So what is there to be done to change? Now, if I listen to this now, it's like, okay, sort of makes sense. I get what this Alex is saying. What now?
Nothing, actually. Like, live normal. I this is what I would say. It's, to me, it's just a big weight off my shoulders, It's not something that enables me to do something, actually, on the level of behavior. Like, before, I could only jump 1 meter. Now I can jump 2 meters, right? Like, this is not what happens. And with thinking, you are already free, and you were always free to think what you want. And you use that freedom. It's just, well, I mean, I hope you were paying attention what you were making and how you were hurting yourself. Because I wasn't, and it was hurting a lot, right? So, and look, I'm still not done with it. It's still sometimes things, wild things, right? And it's just a big difference, again, like with the dream. whether you are dreaming someone is having a knife in front of you, and you are feeling all of this, and you know this is a dream, or all of this happening and you don't know this is a dream. It's a big difference. And to me, just taking it less, making it less important, and having a little bit more of a loose attitude to it, makes all the difference. Even though on the level of behavior, everything could be looked as normal. Like I still do my job, I still have my clients, my friends, my parents, everyone. It is just that whenever I feel hurt, whenever I feel not okay, I now know it is as if I had this safety net, because I then know, oh, okay, my level of consciousness must have slipped. I'm just in a different state right now. When I forgive, things will look different. When I forgive, things will look differently. Something like this, a thought like this comes up, and then calmness comes over me often, and and I feel like, oh, okay, then it's not worth worrying about it now. Action, yes, but worrying never saved anyone, never helped anyone, right? So why would I sit here and just worry and create this suffering for myself and others, right? But primarily for myself. If I can realize, oh, I must have slipped here. I must have bought into the dream too much. I feel so unpeaceful. I feel like dying. I feel like threatened. And then find back to who you are, namely that consciousness, that thing to which all the content, so the experience of your body, of your mind, of everything you see, you feel, you touch, you smell, in the dream or without the dream, within the dream or without the dream, all happens to you, to this I who is. And to be that, and to, again, to uncouple yourself from the contents, to be like, oh yeah, well, the foot hurts, but this foot hurting, is it a thing or a process? Oh, it feels like something happening, like a process. Okay, is this eternal, like I am, or is this coming and going, this pain, this? Oh, well, it seems like it's hurting now, but it wasn't there before, so it must go away at some point. And just these very logical questions can help you find back to, first of all, who you are in truth, and second of all, to be chill with that experience of yours. Because I'm going to be very honest, most people on this planet don't enjoy the same level of dream quality like this here. I'm a very lucky individual. My mom took me from crumbling Soviet Union to Germany at the right time, and I serendipitously met my soulmate. And like, I feel very lucky. I feel very, very lucky, and still I'm suffering, right? And still sometimes I lay here and like, oh, everything sucks for like 20 minutes maybe. Before it was for weeks. Now it's more like for 20 minutes. And even after 5 minutes, I already realize, oh, damn. Like I'm not saying, oh, damn. I'm saying, well, I must have slipped. Let's see how this evolves. Or sometimes I think, what a wild experience right now. Knowing that this isn't ultimately threatening,
To me, that sounds like you just jump back into the sort of beginner's mind, into the present moment, and see like, oh, okay, what's coming up now, and focusing on what's changing rather than what is bad right now. It's like, how is this changing? Oh, I feel it now, but how is that changing? Again, there was a situation for me exactly about that, where in the monastery, we had to sit cross-legged. There was no chair or anything. My legs from playing football, my tendons were just so short. So I had, after about 3.5 minutes, the pain started at my knee.
Oh, wow.
And of course, if you're sitting in for like 3 hours, it's not going to get better. So what you just said is like, oh, but it's not eternal. It will go away. So it's all fine. And then I was like, well, it is pretty tough. And I still have another like 8 days to go. And I was telling them, it feels like it's swollen. Like something feels really wrong with my knee. Like I'm sitting here and like it's getting worse and worse and worse. And I was telling them the guy who was the person to help us or oversee us in the meditation process. And I was telling him, yeah, it's getting really bad. Like I can't bear this pain anymore. It's getting so tough. It's like the worst that I have felt in, I don't know, maybe ever. And he was like, just keep observing it. It'll change. Focus on the things that change. I was like, oh. I wanted to punch him in the face.
Mhm.
And then I did that.
And how did he feel when you punched him in the face?
You should have asked him that, yeah. No, but then I focused on actually how it's changing. And I was like, oh yeah, it's actually expanding now. It's contracting. It's moving. It's interesting. I got curious about how it's changing. Because before I was just focused on how terrible it was. The most excruciating pain in my life. But it was actually changing. And once I focused on the change, rather than on how bad it was, it faded eventually.
Oh.
And it became actually a great tool to be present in the moment. Because if the pain was so big, I could not potentially think about any other thought. So that was actually very helpful. And then a thought came, and I forgot about the pain. For like, I don't know, 5 minutes, I was like, oh, wait, where am I? Oh, wait, I had pain. I had pain. Go back to the pain. Forgot about it. How crazy is that? The thoughts can be so powerful that I forget about the most excruciating pain I had in my life.
Yeah, I mean, wow. This is exactly my experience. Sometimes I had, yeah, I guess this guy, everyone comes up to him and is like, no, you don't understand. My leg is swelling, right? And it's actually real. It's not just my thinking. Like, and he is, to everyone, he is just very kind and saying, well, sure. I mean, there's the number to call the ambulance if you need to. But for now, I would just sit and observe, because everyone is going through the same. We think we are this special snowflake and we are having a very special experience and are going through very special suffering. And like me too, right? I was this poor guy and the only guy who immigrated when I was little, and the only guy who couldn't speak the language in the class, and the only guy who had this scattered brain and this impulsivity and having like ADHD basically and stuff. And I felt very alone with all these things. And to some degree, it is not wrong, because most people have somewhat of an individual trajectory to their life. But in most respects, we would be amazed how similar our experiences are, and especially how similar suffering is. Because you already touched on this a few times with, is this bad or is this good? This evaluation alone is exactly the same as, do I want this, do I not want this? And it's basically responsible to most of the bondage you feel with your life, most of the suffering you feel with your life. Because without the judgment about the situation is always much nicer. Much nicer. And you can then even sit in pain as you did. Because you don't have anything against it. It's much better to have acceptance with what is than to be in resistance. Even if the situation needs to change for life to continue, for example. If there is a nail in your hand and you need to pull it out, even then I would say, first accept there is a nail in your head. You have to first say yes. You cannot be like, no, there is no nail in my head. I don't want to look there. Oh, it's so painful, but I don't want to see it, right? It won't help. You at first have to say, there is a nail in my head, a hand, right? And then only after acceptance, you can find very nice action to like, maybe I cannot just pull it out. Maybe I need to see a doctor about it, right? Maybe then only after saying yes, even to what you think you don't want. So only after saying yes, even about the things you think you don't want, then you get back the agency of doing something about it and being actually free of doing something about it without this me concept intervening and wanting you to evade death at all costs or something. You will still evade it. Like, this thing will still try its best to live. I can promise you that. Like, this is, many people try to suffocate themselves like this, and then they find out it doesn't work, right? Like, it's impossible because just your stupid idea of suffocating the body, self-elimination, it will not be enough to contain the much higher will of that is driving this thing, that is controlling every cell in the body and making everything alive. So it's just gonna be, you're just gonna end up crying on your bed when you try this. So yeah, go ahead, I guess.
Thanks for the advice.
Yeah.
One topic I still wanted to touch upon, I think it's crucial to the acceptance, is also connected to shame and guilt. And you mentioned it already, forgiveness. You had a couple of really interesting thoughts on that, I remember. So what is the first thing that comes up when I say shame and guilt to you?
Okay, so I would always start out by just saying it's not real, right? Like, shame and guilt, and I have to say this to you and the listener like this, because this is not a format where I would do the questioning, right? But you still can do it yourself. You just ask yourself, where is the shame? Where is the guilt? How does it work? How does it operate? Is it an object? Can I touch it? Can I give it to someone? Even if we say as if we do, like, yes, I can say shame on you, right? And this is, if it is as if I would take a snowball and throw that snowball. But can I actually give someone or put someone in shame? Is it possible? Can someone do it to me? Can someone do it to me? Well, you can say something. You can say something like, well, people like you don't care for their children. And then I could feel shame, but usually I would only feel shame if I already decided beforehand to believe that story myself. It wasn't you. How could you make an emotion? Right? Like, it was me, myself. It was my own decision to feel shame or to feel guilt. Okay, so what I propose again is to ask yourself whether there is shame or guilt in nature out there. For example, if a tree falls on a squirrel and both are dead, right? Like, whose fault was it? Is always one of my favorite questions. Whose fault was it? Who is guilty? And I don't think that nature thinks that way. I don't think that if a wolf eats a sheep, then he's a bad wolf, right? And we all kind of feel it. We are like, well, yeah, it's not a bad wolf. It's just a wolf. It's what wolves do. They eat sheep. They eat things. The guilt thing comes in when we are starting to manage the me, this wrong sense of identity, of not right, like this ego self. Because then we can be like, you killed the sheep to eat meat, but you should be a vegan. Shame on you. Okay? For example. And then argument of, well, that's humans, they're omnivores, they're eating everything, so it's might be perfectly fine. It will not be enough there, because this me is involved. I'm not going to go into vegan debates or something. I was vegan for some time, and I find it's fine. You could do that. It's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is, it is as long as there is no you, as long as there's no idea of you, like who am I and what does it mean about me if I do this, there cannot be no guilt and no shame. And this is why I'm saying, if a cat tips over something, she won't feel guilty for the next 5 days, right? The cat will be like, and just go about their business. And if there's something to fix, they will probably fix it if they can, right? Like within their I mean, now in nature, for example, if they tip something over and they need it, they will kind of. And if there is nothing to do, then there is nothing to do. But guilt is never productive. It is just this mental problem, you could say, this mental problem where you think falsely that something that actually happened should not have. Something that actually happened, it's already based in reality, should not have. So for example, I stepped on your foot. Oh no, I feel so guilty because I stepped on your foot. Shame on me. Oh, who am I to have stepped on your great foot? Right? For example.
What was that accent
It's
suddenly?
not doing anything. Yeah, sorry. But it's not useful for anything, and it's not true, because this foot already stepped on that foot. Why would we be in resistance to it? Why would we keep it up? Why would we carry this with us and still make it present right now, instead of watching what is actually around us? Because now the footstepping is over already, but I'm still carrying it with me. And I'm like, oh, no, this footstepping. Oh, I still feel so bad. I somehow need to make it up to him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he will forgive me then, right? And this is where we come to forgiveness, because I'm not just talking about this classical type of forgiveness, or I would say how most people see forgiveness.
Can I still ask a question though to guilt? Because what comes up, I think, for a lot of people is thinking about, okay, well, there is probably something good about guilt, otherwise we wouldn't have it, right?
Exactly.
And there might be even like, if I feel guilty, I won't do it in the future, or I learned something because it feels so bad, So there's something good about guilt, so I will worry about it and I don't do it again in the future or something like that. Isn't that something good, useful, or productive?
Well, yeah, it really depends on the paradigm. If we think that we are motivated by fear, and guilt is just a form of fear, what you just voiced is again basically the main fear thought of, oh no, what if it might happen again, right? Or what will happen in the future?
Yeah.
Without the past, there can be no guilt, right? Without the illusion of the past, without the having a thought about what you think what happened, you cannot feel guilt. And the same is true with, if you don't extrapolate or hallucinate what you think will happen, you cannot have fear. I'm gonna repeat it again. If you don't hallucinate what you think will happen, the future, then it's always a hallucination. You don't know. You just make something up, and you're like, oh no, but I don't want them to. What we're talking about. Without this function, without this thinking pattern, you cannot feel fear. Without extrapolating based on the past that doesn't exist, or hallucinating out of nowhere, which is how it looks to me, the future, you cannot have fear. So, and this is and so guilt and fear are kind of the same. They are just have different directions. So, and to answer your question, it's a good question, because most people are we are all very attracted to guilt and to pain and to the idea of dying. And and we think we are gaining something out of it. We think, well, it sucks, but it's a sacrifice we must take, because with guilt, I at least have the responsibility to care for my children, because I feel guilty if I don't feed them for 2 days. This is how people think most of the times. And yet, if you look at nature, where I don't think people feel guilty, or animals feel guilty, or plants feel guilty, I don't think so. I don't think there is anyone who could even see signs of that. But again, this is just what I think, right? Please don't believe anything. It still works out. And there I even see more intelligent behavior. No one is just carelessly neglecting their children for 2 days. And I think humans also wouldn't, especially if they wouldn't think about guilt and shame and blame and fear. Especially then, it's just natural to feed your kids. You have food, they are hungry. I'm hungry, something like this. It's very natural to give them food. You would have to expend a lot of confused energy and keep it away from them, even though you have it. It's very unnatural not to feed your kid. So all of these made up, you could say, and it is normal. But all of these made up cases of, but what would you do if you had no guilt? Maybe you would starve your children. I think no, you wouldn't. You would live much more intelligently, much more with the flow. You wouldn't think about stuff in the future as much. Things would still turn out fine, and you might be surprised every moment of your life. Like, oh, how alive here. How interesting. This is life right now. Everything I was thinking of wasn't. And yeah. To me, it's very different kind of lifestyle, or you could say quality of life now. Because before, I was 100% just living in my thinking. It was this thing, mind, you could say, was rather strong, and people liked this and paid for it and stuff. So I thought, oh yeah, this is good. I should think more, and people respect this. But it was hurting a lot. It was hurting me, or it was hurtful to buy into the thinking. And it would even hurt other people when I would all of a sudden make myself better than them, or be trying to be right, or argue about stuff that doesn't matter, for example, or argue at all. And yeah, so
then we talk a lot about now thoughts and letting go of them or not believing them. What do you say about emotions? Because they feel so real. Fear is so real. And when also sometimes people say, hey, I have a feeling this is true. I feel truth, or this is something that's really important to me. It's just feeling. I don't really have a thought connected to it. So a lot of what we talked about was based on thoughts and thinking, and I guess letting go of that. What role do emotions play in your situation in your life?
Wow. Yeah, that's a beautiful question, because to me, they are never separable, you could say. To me, emotions and thoughts seem as if they go hand in hand. To name an example, that if you have a video file, like an MP4 or something, or a WMA, whatever, you have a video and an audio part to it, right? And I always say, imagine your thinking is the video part. It creates the main content to watch for, but the background music and the sounds and so on, and what the speech is like in the movie, is basically carrying most of the emotion, right? It's not just the sunset, which is also a little bit important from the visual standpoint, but the emotion in the movie is carried by the music and the voices of the actors. This is like the main emotional driver, while the main content driver, the main thinking driver, is basically the visual information. And one without the other doesn't really work. If you just listen to the movie, you maybe won't even know what's happening. And if you just watch the movie, you won't know what they're talking about and the mood of it. You will just see it. It is by working together where our thoughts and emotions seem to create this very real looking reality. So, and I guess this is a very, very important point I want to make, and maybe the most important point I have for today is most people, if they feel bad, they think it's because it's something in the world that made them feel bad. They're a victim of the world. For example, Julian said, I don't feed my kids, I'm so irresponsible. How does it, like what does it mean about me? And then, no, it's his fault. And, but yeah, I also feel really guilty. I should feed them more and whatever. And then all of a sudden, I have this feeling, thinking thing going on. So I feel my thinking. Even by trying this on, I instantly feel my heart is like closing down. Just by saying these words, you know? I already feel like my heart is like signaling to me, no, it's not where we want to go, you know? Like, this is probably not true. And here I already explained how I relate to my emotions now. Because before, when I would feel bad, I needed to change something. And I needed to change something in the world, outside, seemingly. So maybe drink alcohol would be, or masturbate to porn, or play video games, get my head somewhere on Instagram or on YouTube, you know? Or other people do then, they drink a green smoothie or a coffee or a tea, or they go for a run to get their heads out. I need to evade, basically, which is very normal. And me too. I do this too, still. It's just necessary to understand that this is not what's going to solve the problem. If you want, you could still think about the same stuff later, right? It's not going to prevent you to think about the same stuff later. And it's still going to feel like shit later if you think the same stuff later. If you feel bad, it's not because the world is bad. It's because you're thinking about the world as bad. This is, I guess, the main message here, right? Like, if you feel shy, it's not because the world is shy or you are shy in the world. It's because you're thinking about the world makes sense to feel shy. If you feel anxious, it's not because the world is threatening. It's because you're thinking about the world makes it look threatening. And this reversal of you could say cause and effect, and taking my seat as the main cause for all perception was a big game changer for me. All of a sudden, it isn't like you're the victim of the world and the play ball, and everyone is using you as an NPC in their player character experience. All of a sudden, you're the, maybe, and not to sound like megalomaniac, but you're the one who is deciding what everything here means. You thought it. To you, this pliers could mean like, oh, my grandpa gave it to me and this is da-da-da. Or it could mean nothing. Literally, I have 10 of them. Who cares? Right? It's never intrinsic in the thing. It's always in your mind. And if you step on my foot, it could mean the world to me. This was my broken foot. How dare you? And da-da-da-da. Like, how disrespectful. We didn't even know each other. And how, I mean, come on. Or it could mean nothing. I could be like, oh, he's already off my foot. That's much better than when he's on my foot. Whatever, right? Like, all made up. And when you realize this all made upness of your experience, when you realize this all made upness of your experience, it becomes much more gentle and less acute and less fearful and much more enjoyable, as if you're watching a movie. Because most people like watching movies on their big screen TV where there's a lot of killing and there is a lot of action and so on, because they like killing, well, that's a topic for a different day. But mainly, they don't feel threatened. They even watched horror movies and then they feel a little bit of fear.
That's funny.
Me too.
I can't.
Yeah.
If it's too intense,
too,
if it's
yeah.
too horrific, if it's like too like in the moment. I was in a like 4D cinema of what was it, Resident Evil, and the chairs were like shaking, and there was like air coming, and it was like, I couldn't bear it. It was too like I was too zoned into it that it felt so real in those moments that I could actually nausea. I was like,
oh.
And then sometimes happens in normal movies as well when I feel like I'm too in there. So it's not always the case that if you just see it, even that can create the illusion.
You want to forget. Yeah, you want to. Yeah. This is why you go to the movie in first place. Nobody wants to go to a movie to watch at a movie, to look at a movie from the distance. Every good movie is written such and directed such that when the credits roll, you're like, oh yeah, I'm still in this seat. You want to get lost. You want to forget. You wanted to forget. And then, of course, you do. And if you didn't want to, you wouldn't go to this Resident Evil movie, as I don't. Because I also cannot stand these things.
Well, I won't do it again.
I just had to add something, because you were talking about this thing where you watched a movie in a 4D cinema, Resident Evil something. I would even like to suggest some thought experiment that I often say to my clients. Like, imagine you were doing that with me by your side, and I would constantly not shut up and make you realize that this is just a movie, you know? Like, how did they do that with that lighting? In CGI, or was it actually there? Or like, oh, I really like the costume of and then talking to the real name of the actor, you know? I really like the costume of this actor. She looks so in her role as da-da-da, you know? And like constantly just talk about it. If you would, I do this on my couch and say, look at this screen. How do you like the backlighting? You know, how do you like how this screen is fitting in this room? How do you like the quality of the hue and saturation of the screen? You know, like, and then you could not immerse yourself in there, because you would constantly be called out of this dream of this movie into this higher reality, in which this is just pixels changing colors on the screen. I could even ask you, have you already found my 2 wrong pixels that are wrong on this device? And all of a sudden your whole perception would shift, not from trying to immerse yourself in the story and what happens, but you would watch the screen and look for the dead pixel, right? If you wanted to. So yes, we tend to very easily get sucked into, for example, virtual reality with a VR headset, or in just a movie. Or I mean, when I was playing Tetris as a kid, I was completely, my body was not existent anymore. I was so deep in flow, and this was just a few pixels on a screen, right? It's not about the quality, it's about our wanting to get away, wanting to be there instead of here now, wanting to go in there somewhere. And so and I guess all of most of the spiritual work I know of is a little bit like this reminder that what you're looking at is just an experience. It's just a mixture of thoughts and emotions, and perceptions, and it's all very transitory, which is meaning it's gonna go away. It's constantly changing, constantly coming and going, just evolving. But you are. And what you are is not subject to change. Yeah, look there. So, just wanted to add that. So yeah. I mean, but yeah, and this is the same as with your experience here. The thing why everything seems so threatened and acute is because you wanted at some point, you decided to not remember who you actually are, and instead side with this egoic self, which is not real, with the idea, this process of thinking who you are, the idea, this constantly fleeting process of thinking you're this father, or you're this successful or unsuccessful, or thick or thin, or tall or whatever body. And it's just upkeeping this illusion of being just a body and dying very soon. You wanted this, and this is why you're having it. And but this is optional. You can choose again. And I highly recommend considering. It can help to just look in that direction, I guess.
And what is today, in today's days, what is one thing that you still notice you do to evade, or something that pulls you out of the knowing that this is a dream? I'm saying that because, or I'm asking that because I have it quite often with, I notice myself suddenly grabbing my phone, my laptop to check emails, to check if a message is there. I notice there's a little rush there, so it gives me something. And I'm obviously quickly out of the experience that I know I'm here right now. Very quickly out of it. We're so consumed instantly by it. And if something like that is happening to other people too, that's why I wanted to ask you, what's yours and how do you deal with that currently?
Yeah, I think that's happening to 100% of all the people. and it's it's very normal. And I'm not in any form sacrificing anything or saying you should not use your phone or, masturbate to porn or whatever. And I still do all kinds of things that I mentioned before, and sometimes buying things I don't need impulsively and so on. This impulsivity is still there. And sometimes I see it in clear light, and then I'm like, impulsivity wants to buy these pliers, right? And sometimes I don't see it, and these pliers get bought, and I'm like, well, I could now feel guilty, or it won't do anything, right? Or not, and just, well, it's what happened. I can still stand them back, I can sell them, I can use them, whatever. But accept what happened, right? Like fully say yes. Not tolerate what happened, by the way. Most people think of acceptance as in tolerate. As in, well, I guess I have to by now accept that I was raped when I was 12. Something like this, right? Yeah, I'm such a victim, but at some point, what else is to do? I have to accept it. It's gruesome, but I have to accept. Well, that's much closer to tolerate. And by this I mean you say it's shit. I don't want this to happen, and it should not have happened. It's wrong. It should not have happened. I know better about this whole thing that's going on here, and it should not have happened. And by that, you're not accepting, actually. You're still having reservations, and you're still thinking that you know better than reality, than what actually seemed to have happened, right? Like, you know better than that. And this always causes a lot of pain, because you feel the difference between what actually happened and what you think what should have happened. This is what you feel in pain. So real acceptance is a yes without reservations. Is saying, yes, this body seemed to have been raped when it was 12. There is no benefit whatsoever to still have grudges, to carry resentment or grievances or anything about an idea of the perpetrator from 20 years ago. There is no benefit. The only one who is hurt by that is I, basically, right? I'm hurting myself. No one else is hurt by that. I'm just doing it to myself. And taking back this control of your life, can be so monumental. And some people say, but hey, don't I open the door for new rapists to come? And no, it's just getting rid of all the mental baggage from 20 years ago. Just find, and I want to say, like, it's not as easy as this might sound, right? Like, some people need a therapist, and I'm gonna acknowledge this here, right? I had many therapists and psychiatrists and coaches, and now I'm working as a coach myself, and I help people with these kind of things, but also with normal things. It doesn't need to be as easy as it's spoken here. It doesn't need to feel as easy for you. Some people need to work through some things, to cry their eyes out for 2 days or something. Some people take MDMA to deal with these things. Some people ayahuasca, whatever suits you. Trauma therapy, IFS, you know all of these things. And do whatever is calling you, but don't sit in a cave pointing fingers at the world and playing the victim. This is my recommendation, because this will only hurt you. You will hide, and you will take this dream, you could say, this life, way too seriously, and not having fun by upkeeping what is already way gone and water under the bridge.
Do you think then there's the victim mode, and the opposite? I would just now say something like the creator, or something like that,
Or the
or the owner, whatever.
Yeah. But I like creator. I think creator is a good word. Yeah.
Is the creator mode better than the victim mode?
Well, the creator mode wouldn't judge it. The victim mode separates into good and bad, and better and worse. The creator mode sees what is and knows only this one. There's only this. Nothing else is coming next. Right? It's all in here. It's all not in here as in this world or in this room, but it's all here, right? Nothing else is. This is it. Nothing's coming next. Not gonna get better. Only by the victim mindset, judged by the victim mindset, who's constantly comparing what is against the ideas of what should be in the future, or what should have been in the past, but wasn't, tragically. Right? So this is a very common motive in all of parent wisdom all around the world, and in all old traditions, and masters like Buddha and Jesus were talking about this, but also Plato and Lao Tzu and all of these people, and they all separate the function of the human mind to make this identity of me, and to make stories about it, and then have positionality about liking it and don't liking it. This is right, this is wrong. We are the good ones, they are the bad ones. It's always this direction, by the way. It's always we are the good ones, and they are the bad ones. And it is just a mode of separating creation into parts, and pretending some of them are good and some of them are bad. The creator, on the other hand, doesn't do all of this. It's a very simple life, you could say. It's a very simple life, and one of them is real, and one of them is just a process. One of them is you, and the other one is happening within you, and you just believe it, and you just identify with it. You just identify with this thought who says, I'm gonna be better than him, or, oh, because he's suffering more than I feel good. Things like this, comparison, judgment. I could go on and on, but it is very normal human things that we do on a daily basis, but unnoticed most of the time, but causing a lot of suffering, and needlessly so. We can do better over time.
Okay. I think we have covered a lot of ground. We talked about a lot of different subjects.
Yeah.
If somebody is now in this state, and then or notice they fall quite often back into the state of the victim mode, or they don't feel happy how life is going right now, is there something that, a message, some information that comes to your mind right now that you want to share with that person?
Well, yeah, I mean, when tripping on acid, I learned, don't believe everything you think. Everything you think, right? Don't believe everything you think. Someone told me before. And I found it so profound. And I think you said it even in this call already, right? Like you started questioning your thinking. So the question always is gonna be, what if what you were thinking wasn't true? Right? Like, will you rather protect it and defend it and beat everyone who doesn't think the same, which we have been doing one way or another? Even in the civilized countries, we are still doing it in talk shows and stuff, right? Like there's and debates and arguments and lawsuits. Like there's always this fight going on, and this whole fight is just about thought. It's just about who thinks I am right or who. It's really about something that has no substance. So I guess what if you had a great life but you didn't notice because you were so occupied by this upholding this me thing, and you wouldn't just notice how awesome your life is, how beautiful and shining everything is, and how perfect every moment is, even though there is a thinking capacity that tells you otherwise, tells you no, nothing is perfect, everything sucks and it needs to be different. I'm hungry, my leg is hurt, whatever. But what if this too was perfect? This too was part of all this, and you could just, or you are already with it. I wanted to say, and you could just be with it, but you are already with it. And even that resistance motion, thinking, is already perfect part of it. So I'm not saying stop it. That won't work. I tried. I'm saying just be light with it. Just don't buy into it. If you don't buy into it, it has no power over you. It's in here, or it seems like in here, it's still thinking things like, oh no, am I good enough? Will I be good with Julian on his podcast? Am I gonna get the job that I got? Right? And on good days, I can smile. You know, I realized this tendency. I'm like, oh, this again. And of course, on bad days, I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna run behind these things and try to make them not happen, and fight as if I'm lost in a dream again, not lucid, right? Lost in a dream, lost in the movie. No, go left. But the movie is already finished, right? But you still kind of, or if you're kind of eating popcorn and watch how he goes right and gets killed, and everything's fine. And this is the big difference, that you can still choose. Nothing can ever take this choice away from you. And some traditions say this is the only choice, namely the choice to either side with the victim part or the ego part or the personal mind, you could say, and fully identify with this me idea, that I am this body, and I do this, and I do that, and I'm a good this, but not a good that, and I have ADHD, these kind of things. Or to side with the one that in which all of this is happening, where all of it, including the thinking and the feeling and everything, is emerging and going, is coming and going. It's all a big process, and it's all happening now. And as you said, and this is, by the way, a good clinical tip they give to people with panic attacks. Whenever you feel afraid, just name what you see. Like stand up, go about your room, and say, there is a window, there is light coming through that window, there is a wall, and so on. Just name things you see right now. And this is remarkably easy, but very helpful, because it gets you out of the imagined stuff that is so hurtful, because it's talking about wrong and right and manufacturing guilt all the time, and getting you back into things that just seem to be right there. There is light over there. It's very easy, and it's can help. Yeah, I guess something like this.
I guess though. I hope that helps that person that was asking that question. All right. Alex, how can people who resonated with whatever you said, how can they get in touch with you?
Okay, so the easiest way is to just write to me directly using connect@alexmonas.com. You can also visit my website, alexmonas.com. And right now I'm also found on LinkedIn. And I really like receiving direct messages or emails. I don't have much content out there, but you could, of course, use Google to find it. That's all, I guess.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
It was. Thank you for having me.
Now you can make a commitment to yourself and help others discover this podcast simply by subscribing and following the podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. I hope to see you here soon again for the new episode dropping every other Thursday. Talk soon.